If you have your Bible app, get that out. We're going to be in John chapter 16, not John chapter 15, but John chapter 16. If you've been around here the last few weeks, last 6 weeks or so, we've been in John chapter 15, studying the words of Jesus that he spoke to his closest followers on the night he was arrested and crucified. These important words are recorded for us in the Gospel of John in chapters 14 through 17. But we just finished chapter 15. Now we're going to move on to chapter 16. If you were with us, we talked about the abiding life that Jesus talks about in John chapter 15. We're going to continue looking at these words of Jesus because Jesus is preparing his disciples for the challenges, for the struggles that are coming their way. He uses the word trouble. He's talking about the trouble that's coming their way, that's on the other side of the doors, that are waiting for them. They need to be ready for that. He doesn't want them to be caught off guard. He doesn't want them to be surprised by it. He doesn't want them to get sucker punched. He's telling them, hey, here's what's coming. This whole scene, as I've been studying John chapter 16, this whole scene reminds me of that moment in the movie Gladiator. Maybe you guys are familiar with the scene in Gladiator when Maximus is on the Colosseum floor. He's expected to fight to the death for the entertainment of the crowd, and there's some other prisoners that are on the Colosseum floor with him. They're waiting for something or someone, they don't know what, to come through those gates into the Colosseum. All they really know at that moment is that they don't stand a chance against what's getting ready to come through those gates, through those doors, and no one's betting on them. They're definitely the underdog, and so they're waiting there. These prisoners turned gladiators are waiting there on the Colosseum floor. They're nervous. It's an intense scene. They're shaking in their sandals. They don't know what's going to come through those doors. But these prisoners, they realize that Maximus has maybe some experience. He seems to have some confidence there. And they realize that maybe he's some kind of former commander in the military and he's got some battlefield expertise. And so they start listening to Maximus. And so Maximus starts giving them orders, preparing them for what's getting ready to come through those gates. He says, okay, guys, I don't know what's coming through those doors in just a few moments, but whatever it is, we got to be ready. And the only way we're going to be ready is if we work together. And he starts barking out these orders. He says, I'm telling you, whatever's coming through those doors next, here's some things you need to remember. Here's some things you need to keep in mind. Whatever comes through those gates, we got to be ready for it. And so that's kind of what I think of as I read these words of Jesus in John chapter 16, because this is like Jesus. This is what he's doing for his disciples. He's saying, and this word comes up repeatedly over and over again in this chapter through this discourse. It's this word remember. He says, I don't have much time left here with you. I'm getting ready to leave, but here's what you need to remember. Here's what you need to be prepared for. The word remember is not this passive word, but it's this purposeful word. He's saying, here's what you need to do. You need to intentionally not forget these things. Maybe you need to write these things down. And so Jesus is preparing them for the challenges, the troubles that are coming their way. You got to remember these things. And so as we get into this series, we get into this message today, here's what I want you to do. I want you to imagine that maybe you're standing there on the Colosseum floor. And there's some doors. I know we have this door behind me, but imagine there's some doors, and you have no idea what's on the other side of those doors. You have no idea what's getting ready to come at you. And so you need to keep in mind, these doors are getting ready to open. You don't know what's getting ready to come through them. You don't know what's going to happen next. But you don't want to be caught off guard. You want to be ready. You want to be prepared. I was thinking about this, back in December 2019, we stood before a door. All of us stood before a door that had the word 2020 on it. We had no idea what was on the other side of those doors, did we? We have to be ready. And so here in John chapter 16, Jesus is having this hard conversation with his disciples. He's telling them some things that are uncomfortable. It's truth, but it's uncomfortable. And he's going to tell them why he's having this hard conversation. Here in verse 1, if you have your Bible open there, for verse 1 of John chapter 16, he says this. He says, all this I have told you. So all these things that I have been telling you, all these things I'm getting ready to tell you, I want you to hear them. I want you to understand them because some stuff is coming through those doors. So he says, all this I have told you so that, and here's the reason why he's talking. Here's the reason why we're having this sermon today. He says, so that you will not fall away. He says, we're talking about these things now so you won't fall away later. And this word fall away could be translated in your Bible to the word stumble. Maybe that's how it's translated in your Bible, so you don't stumble. And I was thinking about these poor disciples. I mean, they're hearing these things that Jesus is saying. I mean, Jesus has been with them for 3.5 years now, and walking with Jesus, seeing Jesus work all these miracles, and it's been pretty good. I mean, it's probably been pretty good. I mean, sure, maybe there's been some challenges, but Jesus has always been with them. If there's some things that come up, Jesus was always there to handle it, right? He would take care of it. But now in this journey, it's getting ready to go a different direction because Jesus is saying, hey, I'm getting ready to leave. Things are going to be changing. Jesus said, I'm no longer going to be with you. And he's warning them about what may make them stumble. And he wants them to be ready. I was thinking about this. Have you ever been walking along and maybe you trip up? You know, you stumble a little bit. What do you instinctively do? You turn around to see what made you stumble, right? You want to see what made you trip, especially if you know people are watching, right? You don't want people to think you're clumsy, so you're like, oh, there's a crack in the sidewalk. That's what made me trip. That's what made me stumble, right? If you think there's a camera on you, you want to make sure you point out, hey, I'm not clumsy. Look, there's something right here I tripped over. That's what we instinctively do. We look back to see what made us stumble, what made us trip. You want to identify the cause. And so what Jesus is doing here for his followers is he's saying, look, there are some things in the path that you need to be prepared for. There's some things that could cause you to trip. There are some cracks in the sidewalk you got to be prepared for. And he's saying these things that cause you to stumble, it's not actually the things that cause you to stumble that make you stumble. It's your lack of preparation that causes you to stumble. Right? It's not actually the thing, it's not actually the crack that made you stumble, it's because you didn't know the crack was going to be there. And so Jesus is trying to get out ahead of this and saying, hey, there's some cracks in the sidewalk. Hey, there's some things happening that could be in your path that could cause you to stumble. It's kind of like when you walk through your house in the dark and maybe there's some kids' toys that were left out, or maybe your roommate's backpack is there. If you knew those things were going to be there, what would you do? You'd step over them, you'd go around them. But if you don't know they're there, you could trip over them, you could fall over them. If you know they were going to be there, you could avoid them. And so Jesus is saying, hey, there's some things to avoid. There's some things that are going to be out there in your path you got to be ready for. So it's not necessarily things that make you stumble. It's the lack of preparation. It's the lack of knowledge. It's the lack of forethought that can make you stumble. He wants to warn them about what's in their path, these obstacles they can expect, because if they can't expect it, they can't deal with it. If they can't expect it, they don't see it coming. It surprises them, catches them off guard. And those are the things that you're vulnerable to. Those are the things that Jesus says, those are the things that could cause you to fall away. And so he wants them to understand why. Guys, I don't want you to be discouraged by this. I'm not talking about these things so you'll have anxiety or fear, or so you'll be filled with uncertainty. No, I'm talking about these things now so they won't cause you to stumble later. I don't want you to be caught off guard. Then in verse 2, he gets more specific about some of the things that are coming their way, some things that are behind the other side of the door that are in their way. He says, for you will be expelled from the synagogues. He said, you're going to get kicked out of church. Isn't that interesting? You know, the place where they really want to be accepted, the place where they really want to get admired. He says, you're going to be expelled from church. And then he goes on to say this. He says, and there is a time coming when those who kill you will think they're doing a holy service for God. Those who kill you. It's like, I wonder if they kind of looked at each other like, did he just slip? Did he miss a few words in there? Like, Jesus, did you mean to say those who may try to kill me? Or those who may try to kill us? Jesus, it sounded like you just said those who kill us. Is that really what you meant to say? So you could just imagine what the disciples are hearing. I imagine there's just kind of this silence as they're taking this all in. As Jesus is explaining these things, he's talking about being killed. And Jesus is saying, the day is coming when some of you are going to be killed. Then in verse 4, he kind of ends this part of the conversation by saying, I'm telling you these things now so that, here's the reason I'm telling you these things, so that when they happen, you will remember my warning. I think one of the things that Jesus wants them to understand is he doesn't want his disciples to think that he didn't know it was going to happen. I think he wanted to make it clear. He's like, I don't want you to interpret the circumstances, the difficulties that are getting ready to come through those doors as an indictment on me as God. He's letting them know he knows it's going to happen. He says, so I don't want you to be caught off guard by this. Don't get caught off guard by this. I don't want you to interpret those circumstances, those difficulties you're getting ready to face as evidence that I'm not in control. I don't want it to look like I don't have a plan, because I have a plan. I don't want you to do that. I'm telling you these things now so when they happen, you have trust in me. so that way your confidence in me doesn't wane. And so Jesus warns them about this. So that when it happens, down the road, the disciples can look at each other and say, oh yeah, remember Jesus told us. Remember he talked to us about this. He warned us this was going to happen. Okay, guys, we should know this. This shouldn't make us stumble, right? This shouldn't throw us off because he said these things were going to happen. Jesus says, I'm telling you these things now so you'll be ready later. You know, one of the things Sheree and I get to do occasionally that we really like is pre-marriage counseling with couples who are engaged to get married. And so over the course of 6 to 8 weeks, we go on a journey with the couple, preparing them for marriage, giving them some tools to help them in their new life together. One of the first sessions we like to do is all about managing expectations. And because we want to prepare them for what's coming. We don't want them to be caught off guard by things that happen in marriage. I mean, marriage is a blessing. Marriage is a great gift from God. Okay, just a second. Guys, let me help you out. Husbands, you know, I know not everybody's into saying amen when I'm preaching, but that was some really low-hanging fruit. Let me say my line again, and then husbands, this is your opportunity. Just respond appropriately, all right? Here we go. Marriage is great. Marriage is a great gift from God. It actually sounded sincere from some of you. That was really good, passionate there. So marriage is great, but sometimes, especially early in marriage, it's not what you expect. Ladies, yeah, you can play along too. This would be your opportunity. Ladies, I'll let you play along. I'll say that line again. Ladies, then you can respond. Okay, here we go. Marriage isn't bad, but sometimes it's not what you're expecting. Yeah, okay, see, all right, there we go. There's some things that happen for some couples that they're not expecting. There's some things they didn't know. And because they're not expecting, it could be really unnerving for them. It could be really challenging. If they didn't know to expect them, it could really shock them. If they don't know it's normal, right? If there's certain things that come through those doors after you get married that you got to be prepared for. So expect there to be some communication challenges as a couple, right? You got to be ready for that. So we like to give these couples a few tricks, you know. So for example, we like to tell the ladies, sometimes ladies, what you need to do is you need to dump the details. You know, just get straight to the facts, right? That really will help your husband. And then we tell the husbands sometimes, you know, they just need to understand when your wife says we need to talk, that means you need to listen. That's really what that means. You're just listen, don't talk, just listen to what she has to say. That's what that really means, right? So we like to give them some tips. We like to help them know what to expect. And we tell these couples there's going to be some challenges that come through those doors. Challenges with money, challenges with intimacy, challenges around the in-laws, right? Like if you don't know what's on the other side of the doors, it's your in-laws. That's what's on the other side. They're going to be rushing through any moment now. But so we try to explain to them that you just need to know that there's going to be some challenges that come up as you start your life together. Understand that now so you're not thrown off later when they come storming through the doors. And I think in marriage, some of you understand that because maybe you'd never had someone sit down with you and tell you, hey, here's some things that can happen. Here's some things that come up in marriage. Because that would be really helpful to you. If you had someone kind of help you anticipate those things, then you would know when those things started happening. You could say, okay, we knew this was coming. Let's deal with this. We knew this was going to happen. We knew this could be a possible challenge. How do we work through this? On an airplane, this is why the pilot gets on the intercom and says, hey, we're getting ready to hit some turbulence. He tells you ahead of time, hey, get ready. He does that because he wants you to be ready when those bumps start happening. So get in your seat, buckle up, get ready. Here comes some turbulence. And so this is what Jesus is doing for his disciples. He's saying, I'm having this conversation with you now so you won't stumble later. The New Living Translation says it this way: I have told you these things so that you will not abandon your faith, so you won't lose your faith. I read this great explanation of faith recently. It's this idea of putting your full weight on something so you can move forward. Jesus says, I'm telling you these things now, so that way when things go differently than you expected, you can still put your full weight on me. You can still trust me to help you move forward. Don't abandon your faith. Just lean on me even harder. And this happens. You know, it happens a lot in church because people come to church and they hear they hear the best parts about the gospel. They hear the best parts about being a follower of Jesus, the things that are most appealing, but they miss the fine print. Maybe the preacher, the teacher never explains some of these challenges. Maybe they don't read the scripture for themselves and they don't understand some of the challenges, and so they have this idea that once you become a follower of Jesus, then everything is going to be good. It's all going to be great. That things are just going to come together for you. And unfortunately, to compound this, here's what happens a lot of time in the church world. You have this culture where people just pretend everything's good for them all the time. And so you look around and you think, well, why are they having these, why am I having these challenges? None of these other people are having these challenges. Why do I deal with these doubts? None of these other people seem to have doubts. It's because they're pretending. They want to look like they're strong. They want to look like everything's good in their marriage, their job, everything's good in their world. And so people get the idea that if you're following Jesus, then everything's great. It's all rainbows and butterflies. Everything is perfect. Parenting is easy. Relationships are great. Life is all good. It's this constant idea that when you follow Jesus, everything's great. The sun is shining, the birds are singing, daddy's rich and mama's good looking, right? Whatever, the lyrics to a song or something, I don't know. All right, it's all good. Everything's good. But when things don't pan out that way, it can be really damaging. It can be really shocking because they didn't know to expect some challenges, and so they stumble. And so I think this is helpful for us. It's helpful for us in the church. It's helpful for us in culture right now because I think this explains why a lot of people have fallen away even in this season because they didn't expect it. They didn't realize things were going to be tough. They had no idea. And so Jesus warns his disciples because he loves them. And he has this frank conversation with them so they don't fall away in those tough times when things aren't perfect. And he's being honest with his disciples, and he's being honest with us. So we can't be surprised, right? We can't be naive. Instead, we have to be prepared. We have to be ready. We don't want to fall away. We don't want to stumble in our faith, especially when we need it the most. And so Jesus, he just has this little time left. And as we've seen, he's warning them about the trouble they're experiencing. Even looking back at chapter 15 about being rejected and hated, even persecuted. And as you read through these chapters here, these final words of Jesus, this final discourse here in 14 through 17, if you're like me, you just kind of keep waiting for it to turn a corner. You just kind of wait for it just to kind of get a little bit more positive. If these are his final moments with his disciples, I feel like this is like that locker room talk before the team hits the field, right? And so the coach is prepping his team, getting his team hyped up. And you just keep waiting for this shift to happen from Jesus. Something like, hey, you can do this, go show them what you got. You're expecting to see that in here. It feels like he might need to take some notes from, Lou Holtz or Herb Brooks or, some other coach that did a great job of preparing their team, right? This great big pep talk. But the thing is, Jesus never gets there. It never makes that shift. It's never anything like, hey, we don't know what's coming through those doors, but guys, you've got this. You're trained, you're ready, you're strong enough, now let's go, and like you cue up the song Eye of the Tiger or something and you rush out onto the field. That never happens. It's not in here, right? I've looked. There's nothing in here like if you can dream it, you can do it. That would be really positive if Jesus said something like that. Like, Peter, go get some T-shirts printed with that on it. Let's put that on, everybody. If you can dream it, you can do it. It's not in there. That would be nice, but it's not there. Jesus never says, okay, guys, here's what's coming through those doors, but if you work hard enough, if you set your mind to it, then you can do anything you want to do. It feels like that's missing. Because it is. It's not in there. Because that's not the message of the gospel. It's never the message of the gospel. It's never you can do it. It's never you're strong enough. You can deal with it yourself. No, the message of the gospel is this, that you can't. You can't do it on your own. You really can't. But God can. Through Jesus Christ, you can. Through the power of the Holy Spirit in you, you can. But on your own, it's not going to happen. So that's not in there. Then this great pep talk of Jesus before the team hits the field, those kind of words are not in there because that's not the message of the gospel. The message of the gospel is you can't do it on your own. You need God. And that's good news. But it's not really good news until you recognize it to be true. The truth is you can't. You need help. And so Jesus is getting them to this place where they start to realize that. And I think maybe that's part of the point of this conversation. He doesn't have much time left, and he's going to leave them, and they're going to be on their own. And the worst thing that can happen is for them to get a false sense of confidence. This idea that they can do it on their own, that I got this. That's the worst thing that can happen because they don't got this. And so they're walking along, listening to this talk. And they probably reach this point where they start recognizing, okay, I don't got this. Like, Jesus, you're leaving. It sounds like some turbulence is coming. I'm going to need some help. And Jesus is thinking, yep, exactly. Now we're getting somewhere. Now, last week, Pastor Keith, he talked a little bit about where the help comes from, right? And next week, I plan to talk a little bit more about that because Jesus goes on. He's very clear in this chapter about the help, or specifically the helper that's coming. But here's where I want us to land today, okay? It's this understanding that sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is say, I don't got this, I need help. Sometimes that's the most spiritual thing. That's the most faith-filled thing you can pray. I don't got this, I need help. But we're not good at saying that. Right? We're not good at admitting that. We're not good at expressing that. It goes against our Western culture. It pushes against this self-empowerment ideology that's all around us. And so I thought it would be good for us to practice this. I mean, even if you don't mean it, just to say the words out loud would be really helpful. So can you just say, I mean, even again, you may not mean it. You may not even think you need to say it. But can you just repeat after me? Say, I don't got this. All right? Now say, I need help. You really do. You really do need help. You really don't got this. And this is where God meets you. It is. If you just stop making excuses, you stop blaming people or circumstances, and you start being honest with the fact that you don't got it, that you need help. That's when God, he steps in, he's right there, and he's saying, okay, now this is a heart I can work with. The Apostle Paul talks about this in 2 Corinthians 12. He writes this. He says, he's talking about when he's weak, he's strong. He talks about how in his weakness he's making room, he's making margin for Christ to come in, to show up and show off. And so he talks about how he's not going to hide his weakness. No, he's going to boast about his weakness. He's going to delight in his weakness because when I am weak, he says, then I am strong. He's saying, I need help. And when he says that, he's making room for Jesus to work. He's opening up the door for the power of God to be demonstrated in his life in powerful ways. And again, sometimes that's the most spiritual thing we can do, is to admit that we don't got it, we need help. I think that's what got Peter in trouble, right? I mean, on this very night when Jesus spoke this to the disciples, the very night when he gets arrested and crucified, Jesus, Peter, one of Jesus' closest disciples, he gets himself into trouble because of his self-confidence, right? You might be familiar with the scene. I won't go through all of it, but Jesus is with his disciples in the upper room, something we call the Last Supper. After they ate dinner, they're getting ready to go on this walk that they're on now. Jesus has this awkward conversation with Peter. Jesus says to Peter, hey, before the rooster crows, before the sun comes up tomorrow, you're going to disown me 3 times. And what does Peter say? He's like, not me. Not me. Maybe one of these other guys, but I'm not going to do that to you, Jesus. I'm not going to do that. I would never do that. And what's he saying in this moment? He's saying, I got this. I'm going to stand. I'm going to, no matter what it takes, I got this. And he's expressing his confidence in himself. And that's what gets him into trouble. And if you know the rest of the story, he does exactly what Jesus said he was going to do. He thought he could do it on his own. He came up short. And for many of us, this is kind of the story of our lives. There's some things that come through the doors that are significant. But what do? We like to keep it a secret. We just kind of like to set it, because we don't want anybody to know that we need help, right? We don't want to admit it. Sometimes we don't even talk to God about it. And maybe that's because we feel like what's come through that door is self-inflicted. So we're thinking, well, I can't talk to God about that. I did that to myself. I can't talk to him about that. He won't help me. I caused that. Why would he want to help me? But Jesus is making it clear there's some things coming through those doors. You need to be ready. You can't do it on your own. Will you let me help you? And the truth is, do you know how much trouble we would save ourselves? You know how much heartache we would save ourselves, how much time we would save ourselves if we would just pause long enough to say, I need help. Lord, I need help. I was thinking about it. There's an Old Testament story that I think is fitting for this idea of needing help, looking to the Lord for help. You see in the Old Testament, we read a story about a battle between the Israelites and the Amalekites. It takes place in Exodus chapter 17. You can read through that this afternoon if you want. But think about this. Something you got to realize when you read about these battles in the Old Testament between the Israelites and other nations as they're going from Egypt to the Promised Land is that they're coming out of slavery. All right? They've been in slavery for a long period of time. And so what does that mean? It means they're not experienced in battle, right? There's no training. They've had zero training, zero experience with battle. They've not been trained for war. They have no idea. They probably really don't have many weapons to speak of. So no training, no expertise. They don't have any of that. And so when they go against the Amalekites in Exodus 17, honestly, it looks like it's a pretty easy win for the enemy. But if you read the story, Moses says to one of the guys, he says, okay, Joshua, I want you to be the commander of the army against the Amalekites. And while you're battling down here in the valley, I'm going to go up to this hillside, up to this mountainside, and watch. And so Moses goes up to the hillside so he can see the entire battlefield. And the Bible tells us that while he's up there, he raises his hands in prayer. Right? You guys remember this story? He raises his hands in prayer. And the cool thing is, at some point, he realizes that when his hands are raised in prayer, the Israelites are winning the battle. But if his arms get tired, they grow weak, and they fall, he lowers his hands, then the Israelites start losing the battle. Hands up, winning the battle. Hands down, losing the battle. I've always thought about that moment. Do you think when that's happening, like Moses is testing that theory out, like when he finally makes that connection, like arms up, oh, they're winning, arms down, oh, losing, arms up, you know, like, was he, I don't know, maybe he was, that's probably what I would do. Sorry, you know, like, making, never mind. Okay, I don't think about that too long. But he realizes that. He makes that connection. Anyways, Moses determines that's the case. He knows that he needs to keep his arms raised in prayer without stopping. And so what does he do? He has a couple friends come over. He calls a couple friends over, and these friends, they hold his arms up. They hold his arms up so he can keep praying. And at that point, you know, God doesn't say, hey, that doesn't count. You got to do it on your own. You can't have help. That's not going to help, you know, that they're still going to lose because you have help. No, God doesn't say that. He doesn't say it doesn't count. He says that counts, right? I'm still going to help. I'm still going to intervene. What's going on in the battlefield? Because your arms are raised in prayer, even if you have help. So Moses has his arms up in the air, and after Israel wins the battle that day, it doesn't really say, but I have to imagine what happens is there's this great celebration. I mean, these slaves turned soldiers. They've won the battle when the odds were against them, and I'm sure they're excited. Wow, we did it. Can you believe we did that? That was awesome. That was great, and they're super excited. And again, I don't know if this happened or not, but maybe there's some chanting going on. They realized their commander Joshua had led them into battle, and they won, so they start chanting Joshua's name. You know, like, way to go, Joshua, 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 you know, and everybody's excited. But here's something I was thinking about, and again, I'm not sure if Joshua was named Joshua at this moment. Because at some point, or I'm not sure when, but you read about it in the book of Numbers, but at some point, his name changed to Joshua. Before that, his name was Hoshea. And it's kind of ironic because Hoshea means the one who saves. So maybe, I don't know, but maybe in this moment of victory here, they're chanting Hoshea, right? Celebrating Joshua, the one who saves, the one who saves. And again, I'm just using my imagination here. I wonder if Moses kind of realizes what's going on. And he comes over to Joshua and says, hey, let me talk to you real quick. Let me just let you know something. He pulls Joshua aside. He's like, hey, congratulations, way to go out there, good job. But you need to know something. I have to tell you something. There was something going on during that battle you may not have realized. While you were on the battlefield, leading the army in battle, I was up on the hillside seeking the Lord and praying. Realizing that we needed help, I was up there seeking the Lord for help. Because I knew we didn't got this. We didn't have this. So we needed help. So I went up to the mountainside to pray. My hands were raised in prayer. And when my hands were raised in prayer, you were winning. But when my arms grew tired and I lowered my hands, you started to lose ground. And so Joshua, you were fighting the battle, but make no mistake about it. The battle belonged to the Lord. The battle belonged to the Lord. He's the one who saved us today. And I don't know, I'm just throwing this out there, but I just wonder if that's when Moses changed Joshua's name. Right? And maybe that's the moment when his name turns from Hoshea to Joshua, because Hoshea means the one who saves, but Joshua means the Lord is the one who saves. Maybe Moses just needed to reinforce where their help actually came from. Not from Joshua, but from the Lord. Right? Hoshea, the battle belongs to him, but Joshua, the battle belongs to the Lord. And just a side note, this story is a great example of one of the reasons why we like to raise our hands in worship. Right? We like to express worship to the Lord by raising our hands, and this is one of the reasons we do this when we worship, when we pray, because it's this physical expression of saying, Lord, I need you. Lord, I need you. It's this physical expression of weakness, of dependence on the Lord. It's kind of like when a child raises their hands up to their parent, right? Because they want to be picked up. They need some help. It's an expression of dependence, to be taken care of. It's physically saying, I need help. And so here's what we're going to do in these next few minutes. We're going to go into a time of communion. I hope you had a chance to grab some communion elements as you walked in. If you didn't, maybe you can slip out and grab some real quick for your friends there. But what we're going to do is we prepare to come to the Lord's table and take communion together. Crystal's going to lead us in that song we sang earlier, The Battle Belongs to the Lord. And what I want to invite you to do is, as we prepare for communion, is take the posture of Moses. Maybe you just need to raise your hands. Especially if you're in a battle right now, if there's some things that have come through the door that you weren't expecting, there's some things that have come through the door that are a little overwhelming. Maybe what you need to do right now is you just need to stand and say, okay, I need help. I don't got this. I need help. And look to the Lord and let him fight for you. The battle belongs to the Lord. Declaring the battle belongs to the Lord, saying, I don't have what it takes. There's some things I'm facing. I realize I need help. I can't fix this on my own. So God, I'm looking to you. You're my strength. My confidence is in you. And I feel like we can do that as we get ready to prepare for communion. Again, sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do, sometimes the most faith-filled thing you can do is say, I don't got this. I need help. And you make room for God in your life to demonstrate his power, work on your behalf. And so would you stand with me? I'm going to have Crystal sing the song. And if that's you this morning, you just need to say, God, the battle belongs to you. Lord, I need help. Let's just do that. And then I'll come back up and I'll lead us through a time of communion. Thanks, Crystal.
So when I'll fight on my knees with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. An almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the